Rain hit the theater roof like drumbeats. Half the seats stood empty already. Ushers whispered about canceling the second act. Nobody wanted to drive home in that storm. I stayed anyway. I always stayed for her. By intermission, the lobby had emptied out completely. Only my umbrella dripped by the door. She stepped on stage for the final scene and saw one face left in the dark. Mine. After the curtain fell, she found me backstage. Soaked coat still on my shoulders. "You're the only one who stayed," she said. Then she asked me why. "My name is Samantha Cole, and for 3 years I painted sets nobody remembered by name. I love theater the way some people love a person they can never quite hold. I grew up in a small Ohio town where girls like me learned early to keep our eyes down and our mouths shut. So Portland's rain felt like freedom the day I arrived." Jordan Reyes was the lead in a touring revival nobody expected to sell out. I'd watched her rehearse for 2 weeks before that storm ever came. She had a laugh that startled the whole rehearsal room. Sudden and unguarded. Like she'd forgotten she was supposed to perform even off stage. That rainy night, she asked if I wanted coffee instead of driving home to an empty apartment. I said yes before I finished thinking about it. We sat in an all-night diner on Burnside, steam fogging the windows, and she told me she'd almost quit acting the year before. I told her I built sets because I liked making spaces for other people's stories, since I'd never been brave enough to tell my own. She looked at me like that sentence meant something. Nobody had looked at me that way in a long time. "Why did you really stay tonight?" she asked again. Stirring coffee she wasn't drinking. "Because everyone else left," I said. And leaving felt like the wrong thing to do. She smiled like I'd passed some test I didn't know I was taking. We exchanged numbers on a diner napkin, ink bleeding where rainwater still dripped from my sleeve. 2 days later she texted, "Rehearsal's boring without a real audience. Come watch me be terrible." I started showing up to every rehearsal I could invent an excuse for. The stage manager stopped asking why. Jordan began saving me a seat in the second row, close enough that she'd glance my way between scenes. We started walking after rehearsals, looping the same 6 blocks until our coffee went cold in our hands. She told me about growing up in a military family that moved every 2 years, never staying long enough to be known. I told her about my father, a factory foreman who believed feelings were something you buried, not discussed. Neither of us said the word we were both circling, but it sat between us anyway, patient and warm. One night she grabbed my hand crossing a wet street, and neither of us let go once we reached the curb. "Is this okay?" she asked. I answered by not pulling away. We started ending up at the same late showings of old films, sharing popcorn neither of us finished. She fell asleep once against my shoulder during a Sunday matinee, and I didn't move for 2 hours. I started writing her name in the margins of my set sketches, then scratching it out, embarrassed at myself. She caught me doing it once and didn't laugh. Just traced the letters with her fingertip. Quiet. Her tour manager, Priya, started giving me looks in the hallway, part curious, part cautious. Jordan told me not to worry about Priya. I worried anyway, because I always worried about being seen. One evening she cooked dinner in her rented apartment, badly, and I ate every burnt bite smiling. "I like who I am when you're around," she said, not looking up from the stove. I told her I felt the same, and for once the words didn't feel like a risk. We watched the sunrise from her fire escape after a night neither of us wanted to end. She kissed me there first, soft and certain, like she'd been rehearsing the moment for weeks. I kissed her back before my fear had time to catch up with my heart. "I've wanted to do that since the rain," she whispered against my forehead. I told her I'd wanted it since before the rain. Since the first rehearsal I sat in on. We didn't put a label on it yet, but something had already shifted between us, quiet and permanent. Jordan started introducing me to the cast as my Sam, and nobody in that room blinked. I realized how strange that felt, being known without having to explain or defend myself first. We spent a whole Saturday building a model set together, her hands guiding mine over foam and glue. You're good at making small worlds feel real, she said. Maybe that's why I trust you with mine. I told my best friend Dana about her over milkshakes, my voice shaking more than I expected. Dana just grinned and said, "Finally. I was wondering when you'd stop pretending not to notice her." Jordan's play was extended another month, and she asked if I'd design the next set with her. I said yes immediately, terrified and thrilled at the thought of building something permanent with her name on it. We started spending nights at my apartment too, her suitcase slowly claiming space in my closet. She left a toothbrush by my sink without asking, and I didn't move it. Not once. I introduced her to my favorite diner, the one from the storm, and she ordered the same coffee. "This is where it started," she said, tracing the table's old scratch marks with her thumb. We talked about the future in small, careful pieces, afraid of scaring it away with too much certainty. She admitted she'd been engaged once, to a man, before she understood herself fully. I didn't ask more that night. I just held her hand tighter under the table. "I'm not hiding anymore," she said quietly. "Not from myself. And not from you." I believed her completely, which is maybe why the next months hurt as much as they did. My father called that week, his voice gruff, asking when I was finally bringing someone home. I hadn't told him anything real about my life in years, and the question terrified me. I hesitated so long on the phone that he asked if something was wrong with me. "Nothing's wrong," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. Jordan watched my face after I hung up and asked gently what he'd really said. "He wants a version of me that doesn't exist," I told her. "One with a husband. Not you." She didn't flinch, but something behind her eyes went carefully still, guarded in a way I hadn't seen before. Meanwhile, her producer, Marcus Feld, called an emergency meeting about the show's national press tour. He wanted Jordan photographed with her male co-star, Chris, to keep the audience guessing for publicity. "It's just optics," Marcus said. "Nobody needs to know your personal business right now," Jordan argued. But Marcus reminded her the tour's funding depended on ticket sales in conservative cities. She came home that night quieter than I'd ever seen her, jaw tight. "I somewhere far away. They want me to pretend," she finally said. Again. Like nothing's changed since I stopped hiding. I asked if she was going to do it. She didn't answer right away. "It's just photos," she said eventually, though her voice didn't sound convinced of her own words. I felt something cold settle in my chest, the old fear that love always had conditions attached. A week later, a tabloid ran a photo of Jordan and Chris holding hands outside a restaurant. The caption speculated about romance. My phone buzzed with messages from Dana asking if I'd seen it. I hadn't told anyone else about us yet, not even my mother, so I had no one to correct. Jordan called immediately, explaining Marcus had set the photo up without warning her beforehand. "I should have said no," she admitted. "I told myself it was harmless. It wasn't." I told her it hurt, watching strangers assume a lie while my own truth stayed locked away. "I'm scared too," I admitted. "But I'm not scared of you. I'm scared of losing myself again." She promised she'd fix it, though neither of us knew exactly what fixing it would require. My father saw the photo somehow, forwarded it from a cousin, and texted me, "Is this the girl you like?" My hand shook reading it. I hadn't realized he'd guessed anything about my life at all. I called my mother instead, needing someone gentler to practice the truth with first. She was quiet for a long moment, then said, "I always wondered. I just waited for you to tell me. Why didn't you ask?" I said, half relief, half disbelief at how long I'd carried the secret alone. "Some things," she said, "a daughter has to say in her own time, not mine." That conversation cracked something open in me. A door I hadn't known was still locked. I told Jordan about it that night, and she cried. Quietly, gripping my hand like an anchor. "I want that for us," she said. A mother who waits instead of one who performs disappointment. Marcus scheduled another publicity event. This time an award dinner where Chris would be her official date. Jordan refused outright this time, telling him she wouldn't stage another lie for ticket sales. Marcus threatened to recast her role for the remaining tour dates if she didn't comply. "You'd really pull my part over this?" she asked, disbelief sharpening her voice. "It's business," he said flatly. "Your personal life isn't the show's business." She walked out of his office without answering, and I met her outside, hands cold with worry. "I don't know what I'm going to do," she said, pacing outside the theater in the dark. I told her whatever she chose, I wasn't going anywhere. Storm or no storm. She almost smiled at that. The first real one I'd seen from her all day. My father called again, this time asking outright if the woman in the photo was more than a friend. I sat with the phone in my hand for nearly a minute before I finally said yes. Silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped, until he cleared his throat roughly. "I don't understand it," he said. "But I'm not going to lose my daughter over it." It wasn't the warm acceptance I dreamed of, but it was more than the rejection I'd feared. I told Jordan that night, and she squeezed my hand so tight it almost hurt. "See," she said. "Sometimes the people we're scared of surprise us more than the ones we trust." Meanwhile, Dana confessed she'd been the one who tipped off the tabloid about the restaurant photo. "I didn't mean for it to hurt you," Dana said, guilt written plain across her face. She admitted jealousy had gotten the better of her, an old crush she'd never told me about. "I watched you fall for someone else and I panicked," she said. "It wasn't about her. It was about me." I didn't forgive her right away. Trust doesn't rebuild on the same day it breaks. Jordan, meanwhile, met privately with the cast, telling them she planned to speak publicly about her sexuality. Chris, her co-star, surprised her by offering full support, saying he was tired of the industry's old games. "Let them recast me too. If it comes to that," he said. "I'm not doing this again." Marcus called another meeting, this time with the show's investors sitting stiffly around the table. Jordan walked in and laid out her decision plainly. She would speak the truth, whatever the cost. "The show survives because people connect with something real," she told them. "Not because we lie to them." One investor, an older woman named Ruth, spoke up unexpectedly in Jordan's defense. "I lost my sister to a closet like the one you're describing," Ruth said quietly. "I won't fund another one." The room shifted after that, resistance thinning under the weight of Ruth's quiet conviction. Marcus backed down, though his face made clear he hadn't changed his mind, only his math. Jordan came home that night lighter than I'd seen her in weeks, relief loosening her shoulders. "I think I finally believe I don't have to choose between the stage and the truth," she said. We celebrated with cheap wine and the same diner coffee from the night it all started. But relief never lasts as long as we want it to. Not in stories like ours. 2 nights later, my father called again, voice tight, saying my grandmother had taken the news badly. "She said some things," he told me. "Things I won't repeat. But things you should know," she said. I felt the old fear rise again. The fear that acceptance was only ever partial, conditional. Jordan held me that night without offering easy comfort, just steady presence in the dark. "You don't have to earn love by shrinking yourself," she said. Not from her. Not from anyone. The next morning, Jordan received a call from a national talk show requesting an interview. They wanted to discuss the tabloid photo, the rumors, and whatever truth she was willing to share. "This is bigger than I expected," she said, staring at her phone like it might bite her. I asked if she was ready. She said readiness might be a luxury she couldn't wait for. Marcus tried one last time to talk her out of it, warning of backlash in certain markets. "Then let those markets stay lost," Jordan said. "I'd rather have a smaller audience that's honest." The night before the interview, she couldn't sleep, pacing the apartment in the dark. I found her by the window, watching rain streak the glass just like the night we met. Tell me why you're really scared, I said, sitting beside her on the cold floor. Because once I say it, I can't take it back, she whispered. And some people won't forgive me. Some people, I said, were never yours to keep in the first place. She laughed softly through unexpected tears, resting her head against my shoulder in the dark. Stay with me tomorrow, she said. In the audience. Where I can see you. I promised her I would. Storm or no storm. Just like the first night we met. The studio lights felt harsher than I expected, washing the whole room in unforgiving white. Jordan sat across from the host, hands folded tightly in her lap, composed on the surface. The host asked about the tabloid photo first, gentle but direct, giving her the opening she needed. That photo wasn't the truth, Jordan said. The truth is I'm in love with a woman named Sam. The audience went silent for a beat before scattered applause rippled through the room. I sat frozen in the front row, my name suddenly public in a way I never imagined. I spent years auditioning for roles that let me hide, Jordan continued, voice steadier now. I'm done auditioning for my own life. She talked about growing up moving constantly, about the engagement she'd once used as armor against herself. I thought love was something you performed convincingly enough that no one asked questions, she said. I was wrong. The host asked what changed her mind. She looked directly at me in the audience. Someone stayed, she said, when everyone else had a reason to leave. I felt tears slide down my face before I even realized I was crying. Afterward. Backstage. Marcus approached us both, his expression unreadable. Something between anger and resignation. The switchboard's lighting up, he said. Half outrage. Half something I haven't seen in years. Support. Ticket sales. Turned out. Spiked in cities Marcus had sworn would boycott the show entirely. Guess I was wrong about the market, he admitted. Almost grudgingly. Almost respectfully. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Saw the interview. Come home this weekend. Bring her. I stared at those words longer than I'd stared at anything in my life. Jordan squeezed my hand, reading over my shoulder, her own eyes bright with cautious hope. That's not nothing, she said. That might actually be everything. If we let it be. We drove to Ohio that weekend. The same roads I'd once fled to escape being seen. My father met us on the porch. Awkward. Unpracticed. But present in a way I hadn't dared expect. I don't have the right words, he said. But I made up the guest room anyway. Jordan shook his hand, and something in his shoulders eased at her steady, unguarded smile. My grandmother stayed inside, unwilling to greet us, and I felt the old ache return sharply. Give her time, my mother said softly. Some doors open slower than others. That doesn't mean never. That night, sitting on the same porch I grew up hiding on, I finally exhaled fully. Jordan wrapped an arm around me under the stars. No cameras. No scripts. Nothing to perform. Whatever happens next, she said. I don't want to build a life around anyone else's approval. I told her I felt the same. That approval had cost me enough years already. We returned to Portland to news that the show's producers wanted to extend the run again. This time, Jordan negotiated her own terms, insisting on creative control over how her story got told. She asked me to design not just the set, but a new closing scene, written together. We built a final act about two women who stay when everyone else runs from the storm. Opening night for the new ending arrived under a sky heavy with familiar gray clouds. Rain started exactly as the house lights dimmed, drumming steady against the theater's old roof. Some patrons shifted nervously, glancing toward the exits the way strangers had that first storm. Nobody left this time. Every seat stayed full through the entire second act. Backstage after the curtain call, Jordan found me exactly where she had the very first night. You stayed again, she said, breathless. Makeup smudged from happy, unguarded tears. I told you, I said. Leaving never felt like the right thing to do. My grandmother, unexpectedly, had driven up for opening night. Sitting quietly in the back row, she found us backstage afterward, hands trembling slightly around her cane. I didn't understand it, she said. I still don't. Completely. But I watched you both tonight. And, bracing myself the way I always had around her. And I saw two people who love each other, she said. That much I understand just fine. It wasn't a perfect ending. Not the kind theater usually promises its audience. But it was honest. Unscripted. The kind of ending I'd stopped believing I deserved. Dana came to opening night too, bringing flowers and an apology I finally accepted fully. I'm working on being the friend you actually needed, she said. Progress, not perfection. Marcus even sent a card. Gruff congratulations scrawled beside a request for the sequel's set designs. Some things change slower than storms pass. But they change all the same. Jordan and I moved into a small apartment near the theater that spring. Our names on one lease. We kept the diner napkin from that first rainy night, framed above our kitchen table. On anniversaries, we returned to that same theater, sitting in the same emptied second row. People ask sometimes how we survived the tabloids, the fear, the years of hiding beforehand. I tell them the truth. Someone finally stayed, and I finally let myself be found. Some storms clear a stage nobody thought could ever be filled again with light. We built a life from the two seats that stayed occupied when everyone else went home. Fendi.